this particular story here that you're going to hear. Whenever I seen it, I only seen part of it, didn't see all of it. But whenever I seen what part that I did see, it had a breathtaking, heart-wrenching event up into my personal life toward just exactly what type of illegitimacies that I personally have went through up in Kentucky pertaining to Cadiz, Kentucky, Judge Woodall, Land Between the Lakes, Gary Hawkins, Lisa Hawkins, and Dwayne Cameron. I had done already went before a federal judge because Land Between the Lakes is a federal park. And I had done already spent almost 6 complete months being analyzed and studied by doctors up north, by Dr. Dana in MCC in downtown Chicago, that gave me an A+ reading for my cooperation and in his studies. I was on a 2-year probation period. After the 2-year probation period was over with, I made 2 telephone calls in the span of 90 days. Telephone call number 1 went directly to the office of LBL, law enforcement. Telephone call number 2, which was in a 90-day span, went to a Gary Hawkins. Both telephone calls was very sympathetic. Both telephone calls was in a non-threatening form, and both telephone calls was basically me telling how misfortunate that everything was that got twisted and turned around. Well, come to find out that they was the very ones that was twisting it and turning it around, because after I made those 2 telephone calls, suddenly, all of a sudden, they had 2 federal warrants for my arrest that they went all the way out to Oklahoma after finding out that I was out there and dragging me back to Trigg County. And then from Trigg County, I was ordered by Judge Woodall to go to a psychiatric evaluation. I think they call it an eval up in LaGrange, Kentucky. This was after I had already been studied by Dr. Dana 2 years prior to that, of the same group of people, by the same group of people, from the same initiated place. So if you would, please listen to this, and I think it will share a bit of light in regards towards how the circuit, how the psychiatric center circuit is twisted, it's upside down, and to be quite frank with you, the only way that the state of Kentucky should have been able to have shot me full of penicillin, or not penicillin, but a drug called Risperdal against my will, would have been if I was violent, harm to myself, or a harm to others. I was not violent. I did not consider myself any type of threat, just making 2 telephone calls in a apologetic form. Please listen to this particular story of a psychiatric hospital pertaining to a illegitimate doctor that was treating his patients illegitimately.
We're back now with an NBC News investigation. A top psychiatrist in Arkansas is being accused not only of Medicaid fraud, but failing to treat patients and even keeping them against their will. Stephanie Gosk has the details.
Security camera footage from 2022 shows Dr. Brian Hyatt making rounds on his psych ward in an Arkansas hospital. But notice something in the clip. He doesn't actually visit patients. Not surprising, according to Shannon Williams, a former patient in the hospital.
All I saw of Dr. Hyatt was the back of his head in the hallway.
He didn't come into your room?
No, I never even saw his face.
The Arkansas Attorney General says Dr. Hyatt was running a scam. In a search warrant relying in part on that security video, the AG alleges the psychiatrist claimed to treat patients he rarely saw and then billed Medicaid at the highest severity code on every patient. Dr. Hyatt, the former head of the state medical board, did not respond to multiple requests for comment. His legal team has called Medicaid billing complicated and the conclusions speculative. Williams and 26 people who have filed lawsuits claim what Dr. Hyatt did to them was much worse than fraud. They say they were falsely imprisoned.
They said that I was suicidal, and I told them I wasn't. I was in sound mind.
Williams said she was struggling to cope with multiple deaths in her family. An ER doctor sent her to Northwest Medical, where she says she was kept against her will. Were you scared?
I was terrified.
She said she tried refusing sedatives.
They sent in 4 nurses, techs, and they each grabbed my arms and my legs and held me down on my stomach and shot me up with a sedative.
In Arkansas and in at least 21 other states, people who are a danger to themselves or others can be held against their will for 72 hours, but a request has to be made in court to keep them there. Was that law being followed at Northwest Medical?
From the more than 100 patients that I've spoken with, it was not being followed.
Williams was kept for 5 days according to her medical records. No court request was made. In 2 cases, attorney Aaron Cash said he needed the sheriff's help because the psych ward wasn't releasing his clients. This is body cam footage of one of those releases.
Oh my gosh, you saved my life. You don't even understand.
Oh, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't want to have to be here
for 5 days.
Cash alleges Dr. Hyatt's goal was to keep beds filled, whether patients needed to be there or not, so he could keep billing. Psychiatric patients are still being treated here, but the hospital fired Dr. Hyatt as soon as the allegations surfaced. It settled with the federal government agreeing to pay back $1 million. In more than 200 cases, the hospital did not have sufficient records justifying that patients actually needed to be hospitalized. Hyatt's lawyers have said he's the victim of a vicious, orchestrated attack on his character and service. The doctor has not been charged with a crime. As part of the settlement, the hospital denied any wrongdoing. In a statement, a spokesperson writes, "We believe hospital personnel complied in all respects with Arkansas law, which heavily relies on the treating physician's assessment of the patient." DEA agents raided Hyatt's office, according to federal officials, but it is not clear if he will be prosecuted. While Williams says she struggles with the memories.
I have flashbacks just randomly. I don't think it's something that's ever going to leave.
She hopes her story will help change the system, so people who really need help will get it. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News, Springdale, Arkansas.
That's exactly my sentiments to it as well. The system needs to be repaired, especially whenever people abuse their authority like they did in a federal park in Land Between the Lakes in Kentucky and put out 2 federal warrants for stalking in the 1st degree that covers, according to their statute, 1 to 5 years per account over 2 non-threatening telephone calls that I don't even think deemed under the credibility of being considered harassment telephone calls, much less stalking in the 1st degree. You keep in mind, I was the one that was dealing with these people prior to all that, and they was the ones that nabbed me up the first time and took me before a federal judge. So it's not like at random that I just started picking on some people that I didn't even know. And the fact is, whenever I did go before a federal judge on the first get up, it was never explained to me in any form or fashion that the reason why that they had arrested me was over harassment telephone calls. The reason why that they arrested me was over the pretense of me saying that I was going to go after a darkly complected individual, foreign descent, believed to be Satan in the flesh. Because that's considered premeditated murder, they cornered me by telling me that if I did not agree with their terms, that they would come after me with a Class E felony on a basically a federal bench warrant. I went ahead and agreed towards going and getting studied. Whenever I come back, I got an A+. I didn't violate no probation. I stayed away for 2 years. But yet now, after making 2 telephone calls, 1-to-1 telephone directory going directly to the office of LBL, to the park, and another one to Gary Hawkins, and now suddenly all of a sudden I'm stalking them? Wow. And it was the whole time that they was stalking me during the time that I was up there fasting and praying for peace upon the earth, that I can prove, that I got records of. But it's stuff like this that you just got through witnessing and seeing that goes on under the table that people don't ever hear about, and then whenever they do hear about it, most of them don't either care or don't believe it. Don't believe it.
All right, when we come back, we'll bring you one last song from one of the most enduring voices in American music. Lady Gaga with 7 decades of music.
I know I'd go from rags to riches if you would only say you care. Though my pockets may be empty, I'd be a millionaire. My clothes may still be torn and tattered, but in my heart I'd be a king. Your love is all that ever mattered. It's everything. So open your arms and you open the door to every treasure that I'm hoping for. Hold me, kiss me, tell me you're mine evermore. Must I forever be a beggar? 'Cause golden dreams will not come true. Or will I go from rags to riches? My fate is up to you.
And may he rest in peace.
WPSD Local 6, your breaking news and weather authority. This is Local 6 at 6.
Candidates for Kentucky governor visit the Local 6 area today, just 4 months ahead of the election. Attorney General Daniel Cameron, the Republican nominee there, talking to supporters in Princeton, and incumbent Andy Beshear touring the flood damage in Mayfield. And that is where we begin tonight. The governor surveying damage from the historic rainfall and flooding that hit earlier this week alongside local leaders. Local 6's Jasmine Youngblood was right there with them. She's live tonight from Mayfield for us. So, Jasmine, what areas of Mayfield did you visit?
Jen, where I am now, you can see behind me. There. And the cleanup site, just a few blocks is Mayfield's Court Square. It took a direct hit during the December 2021 tornado. This home was
Jasmine,
also
we have been
damaged
having some
during the
technical
tornado.
difficulties with you. We'll try to come back here in just a few minutes. Coming up at 10, how survivors of the flooding last summer in eastern Kentucky are supporting Mayfield as they begin their flood recovery. And as Beshear toured Mayfield, his challenger for the governor's seat in November's election visited West Kentucky too. Our own Todd Faulkner sat down with Daniel Cameron for an exclusive interview. That's coming up in just a few minutes. For now, we're going to stick with flooding coverage, homes and businesses impacted, including Smith Home and Design in Mayfield, which hadn't opened to the public yet. Local 6's Ariana Allen talked to the owner today.
Right now, things may look normal here at Smith Home and Design, but after getting 10 inches of water, it's anything but. This is what owner Brad Smith walked into when he checked on his business after storms on Wednesday.
So the water line is actually here.
Smith has called Mayfield home for the past 30 years. He says his business and this new building means everything to him.
This is something I've been working for 20 years, and to see the damage, because we still don't know the extent of the damage yet. We'll have to wait till everything dries. My concern is going to be mold. You know, with everything is drywall, everything is insulated behind the drywall. So all this stuff is running through my mind.
Here at Smith Home and Design, fans like this one is helping dry out any inventory and flooring.
We're going to keep everything going. We've got dehumidifiers, fans, and until everything dries out inside, then we can really evaluate the damage.
For now, Smith and his team are working to clean up not just this building, but their community.
Yesterday, I went and tried to help a few people that had issues with their own, you know.
It's a trend in Mayfield, the community sticking together. Smith is encouraging everyone to stay strong.
We still are looking forward. We're going to get through this and get back on track.
In Mayfield, Kentucky, Ariana Allen, WPSD, Local 6.
Smith says their original grand opening date in late August has been pushed back due to the flooding. He's unsure of a new date. His house ministries and volunteers are helping after the flood damage there in Mayfield. They walked door to door yesterday to figure out what people need. And today they distributed 52 blessing buckets filled with cleaning supplies to homes and businesses with water damage. They help victims of the December 10th tornado too.
It's not the same level of damage or devastation as a tornado, by no comparison. However, even when one is hurting, we want to be there to have compassion for them. When we know of 36 to 40 that are hurting, we just can't do it all by ourselves. We need help.
His house ministries still needs volunteers. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., they're asking for anyone willing to help to show up to their building. It's on State Route 303. And Lowe's is also lending a helping hand to victims of the flooding. Tomorrow, they're passing out free buckets of cleaning supplies. That includes things like sponges, masks, trash bags, and more. The giveaway starts at 10 a.m. at 3 locations locally. The Lowe's on Paris Road in Mayfield, on Hinkleville Road in Paducah, and on Urban Cobb Drive, Southside Paducah. More than 1,200 buckets will be given out, available while supplies last. It's not just people impacted by the flooding. In Mayfield, some animals are being found lost, away from home. That's where Local 6's Callie Stone has been today for us. So, Callie, where are these lost animals now?
Jen, they could be anywhere from local restaurants to here at the animal shelter. From what I've heard today, they still have 2 animals that are displaced from the storm, and the main goal is just to get them back home.
So when we came in, the water was coming in through the door.
Employees of the Mayfield-Graves County Animal Shelter came into work on Wednesday to a flooded building. The only thing they could do was to start trying to soak it up with the linens they had.
Some of the donations we need are related to the flood because, you know, a lot of our linens and stuff got soiled from the flood.
But damage to property isn't the only thing that comes with flooding. They've got 3 animals that came to them yesterday after the storm.
For the bigger storms with the big thunder and the lightning, we see animals go missing and come in here a lot.
But today, 1 animal got a happy reunion. Bruno, a pit mix, was taken to the shelter yesterday. Thanks to a few calls between the animal shelter and some relatives, his time at the shelter was short-lived.
Yeah. It's just good to know that he's not out hungry and he's not miserable. It's sad because they miss him, and I know he's happy that he'll be back home with us.
There are still some animals coming in as lost, but the shelter has hope that they'll soon have a reunion too.
Some more good news. The owner of the white dog in the video, his owners have been contacted. I will say they did tell me that microchipping is a big thing for pets. That way, if they do happen to find your animal, that they can scan it and get some contact information. Also, if you do have a lost pet, go ahead and come give them a description. So if they happen to find them, they can give you a call. Live in Mayfield, Kentucky, Callie Stone, WPSD Local 6.
Callie, thank you. You can see all our coverage on these historic floods at WPSDLocal6.com. You're going to find an updated list of closed roads, fewer pictures and videos, and ways you can help. Just click historic flooding, at the top of the homepage.
Now, your Weather Authority first forecast.
All right, as expected, clouds have increased this afternoon.
They're going to make it through this. else feel affected. They're going to make it through this.
Feel like we've been punched in the gut a little bit for this town and this area to be hit again. But I can tell you one thing, the people of Western Kentucky are tough, and after the last year and a half, absolutely know how to lift themselves up and rebuild.
So Mayfield is one of 5 cities in a state of emergency because of this week's historic flooding. Bashir says the state is working to get individual FEMA assistance for homes and businesses affected. All right, new tonight, this inmate who escaped the Graves County Jail this morning is back in custody. Kentucky State Police say Nathan Williams escaped this morning from Graves County while on work detail. Jail staff say he was only on the job for 4 days. As for how he got out, Williams said he needed to use the restroom at the Kentucky State Highway Department when he escaped. Graves County jailer Kelly Elliott says the State Department of Corrections picks inmates for work details, not the local jail. She says the jail has strict rules for those inmates.
What we are doing already,
This is his 23rd year in education. Like his students, he's
It's less than 20.
Yeah, Sunday night we had storms.
Yep.
We had a tornado. We had the historic flooding on Wednesday, not to mention more rain and storms after that. Sum it all up for us, Noah.
Well, it's hard to sum up. I mean, I don't even know where you start. I mean, you talk about this week, it just depends, I guess, on what you were impacted by. You know, some people got hit more by the thunderstorms on Tuesday with the wind damage. We had storms Thursday morning, hit downtown Paducah over towards Princeton and Edville, and obviously the flooding, unfortunately, in Kentucky and parts of Tennessee and far southern Illinois. I'm going to walk you through the week real quick because I think this is really eye-opening for many of you. This is the tornado, severe storm, flash flood alert map. So from Sunday through Thursday, all the alerts. I'll start by type. So these are the tornado warnings. We only had a couple of them, and these were on Tuesday, which, by the way, this gets lost in the sauce and lost in everything here and lost in the shuffle, I mean. Those storms Tuesday, that squall line, that could have been a derecho. Trent and I have talked extensively about that. Both of us agree that we got off easy, and to be honest with you, I don't really have a reason why. I don't really know. Somehow, the grace of God, that big line Tuesday probably should have produced multiple tornadoes. Thankfully, it did not. Now, here's all the flash flood warnings that were issued this week from Sunday through Thursday. Obviously, the majority of these were late Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. And several of these were flash flood emergencies, but we did have some flash flood warnings in southern Illinois. Where you see these brighter greens, these are the flash flood emergencies. There were 5 of them issued, the first ever from the National Weather Service in Paducah for the Purchase area of Kentucky. Flash flood warnings extended down into Tennessee, but interestingly enough, 0 flash flood warnings in parts of Obion County, Tennessee. And y'all, I'm telling you, it's pretty silly. It really is. It's silly. I was sitting here the last half hour trying to separate the days. I just put them all together. It was too much work, and it actually is better visually for you. These are all the severe thunderstorm warnings just this week. I mean, it's just, I don't even know where to start. It's just been, you have to laugh. I mean, it's just been an unbelievably busy week, but it's no laughing matter, unfortunately, for everybody who's been impacted by the flooding, and we are thinking and praying for you. One last look at the rain map. Everywhere on here in pink, 6 inches plus, 8 inches plus in the blue. Heck, you got up by Harrisburg, Illinois, there was less than 2 inches of rain this week. Here you see the plume of 10 inches to 15 inches of rain. Fancy Farm, the leader in the clubhouse this week in all the worst ways possible, with 15 inches of rain from Sunday through Thursday. And unfortunately, I am told tonight that the crop losses from this will now extend into the millions of dollars. And so far this year now, including this week, we have had, I think I saved it right, there we go. We had 715 total watches and alerts so far this year. That's the second most in the existence of the National Weather Service in Paducah. You have to go back to 2011 to find more tornado watches, severe storm watches, wind advisories, everything issued, and that was when we had 852. Out there tonight, we've got a good deal of clouds, temperatures in the 70s and 80s. Dew points, though, are about to come down. Tomorrow is going to turn crisp and refreshing. Notice all the humidity going south, lower dew points are coming down from the north. Real quick, your forecast for tomorrow. Maybe some patchy fog in the morning. Otherwise, a beautiful day to get out, to enjoy. And unfortunately, many of you will be cleaning up, which will not be solved in just one day. But if you have cleanup to do tomorrow, notice here 7 o'clock. Tons of sunshine, plummeting humidity. It will feel oh so much better tomorrow. Sunday, late afternoon and evening, there's a 20% chance of a pop-up storm. Nothing severe, nothing widespread, but 1 or 2 or 3 on the radar late in the day Sunday. Monday, sunny, 91, still low humidity. Then the heat and humidity really crank towards the middle and end of next week. The way it looks right now, middle to upper 90s, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of next week.
Get 11% off your outdoor project.
Well, one disaster right after another.
That's come about, and this is the direction that this the Board of Education has gone in. And I want to make it clear to everyone, I think you made it clear, and I think so many others have made it clear, that there was no benefit to slavery and those individuals being enslaved. There was no benefit at all to it. And I also want to point out the fact that all of this is disingenuous. It's totally disengaging from the process and what we as a legislative body should be doing in this moment, considering the fact of the many issues that we as a state should be dealing with to make sure that our children are learning accurate history.
Yeah, what was the benefit of forced breeding, of raping enslaved women and then owning their children as a breeding strategy and also just as a form of venality? What was the benefit of taking black enslaved children and putting them by the water so that gators could come, so that they could hunt gators, and using them as literal gator bait, and then putting that on postcards? That is the savagery that took place. And yet your state would now like to teach that acts of violence against African Americans has to be taught alongside claiming that it is African Americans who are causing the violence. And that's not limited to the 1908 Atlanta race riot, 1919 Washington, D.C. race riot, 1920 Okosi massacre, 1921 Tulsa massacre, 1923 Rosewood massacre. They just kept happening over and over and over again. And I wanted you to comment on this, please, Senator Jones, Senator. Florida is a place where already 35% of these students are white in public school, but 20.9% are black, 36.4% are Latino, 2.8% are Asian American, and 4.1% are two or more races. So when the vice president says it's propaganda, they're trying to propagandize non-white children to make them believe that slavery was a good thing. And I wonder for what reason. Can you speculate on why they want black children to believe that slavery was good?
Yeah, I can't speculate on why they're doing this, but I also can tell you that you see what's happening in Florida and across the country of this narrative that's being pushed. Yeah, it's really because this is not a policy issue. This is a power struggle that we're seeing right now. This isn't just about the rewriting of history. Florida is trying to wipe away anything that contradicts the carefully crafted narrative that DeSantis is creating, and that includes black history. So here's my thing. So if DeSantis doesn't want teachers to teach black history in the classroom, then I'll put my teacher hat on for 2 seconds and I'll do it right here. I mean, it wasn't an accident that Vice President Harris chose La Villa in Jacksonville to her visit. La Villa is a historically black neighborhood that became a safe haven for recently freed slaves after the Civil War due to the relative safety it offered with Union troops located nearby. So Florida has a great deal of history. I think we should also point out that Florida was one of the last states to move forward when it comes to desegregation. One of the last states. And so what we're seeing in Florida, this is a national issue that we're dealing with, Joy. And this is a national problem that we're dealing with. We have the potential right now to raise a generation of children who don't know who they are, who don't know where they come from, and who do not know their history. We have to stand firm on this. And I'm not just talking about black people have to stand firm. Our allies have to stand firm, because history is history. Whether you're a Jewish American, whether you're a Chinese American, everyone's history is important. And whether you feel whether you feel comfortable or uncomfortable, it doesn't matter. You cannot tie a bow on bad American, what happened in American history, and say that it was good. It wasn't. Lynching wasn't good. Redlining wasn't good. All the things that have happened in America need to be taught, and children need to know the truth.
Absolutely. And you have to wonder why the people who are passing these laws don't assume that their children, if they are white, will not identify with the people who were heroic in history and with the abolitionists. They just assume that their children are going to identify with the enslavers, and so they're trying to make the enslavers look good. And
they're ashamed. The Europeans that come over here that basically genocide the Native American people basically took advantage of the black race in profiteering off of the sweat and blood of others. And like the individual said, none of it was good. Absolutely none of it was good. Even the way that they conducted their laws pertaining to their hearings or their trials, that wasn't considered civilized neither. So the only reference that I can come up with is that they're trying to whitewash the shame of that in which what did occur. And I agree with the gentleman here, regardless whether it makes you feel uncomfortable, regardless whether it makes you feel ashamed, regardless whether it makes you feel mad or angry or whatever category that it may make you feel in, you have to teach history according to facts. And if you're not teaching history according to facts, then you are teaching a false narrative. And if you're teaching a false narrative, you ought not be teaching at all. Because I'd rather not know none of the truth than to know the manipulated truth. Because the manipulated truth can actually be worse than not knowing any of the truth. That's the reason why God said that He'd rather you either be hot or cold, that if you was lukewarm, He'd spew thee out of thy mouth. In other words, He despises those that are hypocrites and those that are living a lukewarm Christianity life. He would rather you be on the hot side. But if you're not going to be on the hot side, then rather than be in the lukewarm side, He'd rather you be on the cold side. And if you can't see that or understand that, then I'm basically whistling Dixie in the wind. Good luck to all of us. And I'm really, really so heartbreakingly sad about the flooding again. It just looks like some of the people just can't get a break pertaining to the forces of nature that are right now being very, very cruel and coming down in great wrath because Satan knows his time is short.